Hello and welcome to Future Construct. I'm Mark Oden, the owner of BIM Designs Incorporated. We're here at Geo Week 2023 in Denver, Colorado. I'd love to welcome Marc Goldman, AEC Industry Solutions Director at Esri. Thank you so much for having us.
My pleasure to be here. My pleasure to have a conversation with you.
Mark, I'd love to hear a little bit about your background. What led you from the beginning of your career up to Esri?
Certainly. It's a story I love to tell. I studied architecture and engineering many years ago. Went to Tulane University, created a combined program of architecture and engineering, but even went to school with a few years of CAD kind of in my back pocket in my background. So I was doing early CAD work, early 3D work. This was in the early and mid 90s, and the technology bug bit me, and I ended up dropping out of school and pursued a career in construction technologies. Opened up an Autodesk consulting business way back in the day. Wow. Eventually joined Autodesk, and that moved me out from New Orleans to Marin County. Mm-hmm. And from there, I've just been involved in the intersection of construction and technologies. Worked at Autodesk actually twice in my career, helped get a couple startups off the ground in the AEC space, and currently at Esri, my role is to spread the word about GIS as an important technology and solution for architecture, engineering, construction, operations, property tech, etc.
What an incredible and relatable career. That's incredible. So at Esri, you're the AEC Industry Solutions Director. Yeah. What is your core focus there, and how do you support Esri in their overall goal?
Yeah, it's a fun place to be at right now, because in the AEC space, the adoption of technology is at a greater pace and a greater level of openness than I've ever seen in the 30 years I've been in this space. So at Esri, we've got a lot of customers who use our solutions for infrastructure projects of various type. Waterways, urban systems, dams, complete campus levels of understanding. And my role is to work with the architecture, engineering, and construction firms to help them understand how GIS and location, geography, context can help in the process of planning projects, designing them, figuring out the construction plans, and then eventually handing something over to the owner so that the operations can be done more effectively, with GIS being just a tool in the toolbox.
Fantastic. I've been personally so impressed with what I've seen of Esri and their tool sets. They've had some recent tool sets that they've released, and there's some combination of GIS and BIM that are blending together. Would love to hear about those new toolkits and your thoughts on GIS
Definitely,
and BIM.
Yeah. Historically, GIS and BIM were two separate camps. You had your architects and engineers and construction professionals using CAD and BIM tools to produce drawings, to produce models, and to produce plans. And you had a different camp of people using GIS, perhaps for large-scale site planning or understanding perhaps where their suppliers were coming from. But the intersection of the two types of data and systems really didn't work very well together. About 5 years ago, Esri and Autodesk essentially put down their guard with each other and decided it made more sense to collaborate and form an alliance partnership than to be competing. Mm-hmm. So now CAD coming into Esri's map environments is single-click kind of functionality, bringing in BIM data, whether it's Revit files or IFC files or other formats, directly into a map environment so that you have that detailed view that the BIM gives you in the context that a map gives you. Again, single file import kind of functionality. And then most recently, what we've done, we've worked with Autodesk and developed a solution called ArcGIS GeoBIM that allows the ArcGIS online maps that you create. And you create those with all the richness and depth of dozens, hundreds, thousands of layers of information. And when you might click on a feature in that map in a single view, on the other side of the screen pops up the Autodesk Forge viewer, which is an access to Autodesk Construction Cloud or BIM 360. Mm-hmm. So we've brought that map context, the high-level view, the spatial analytics, and all these layers that you get from GIS with all that detailed information that might exist in an engineering or a construction repository, which is Autodesk Construction Cloud. So ArcGIS GeoBIM is one of the newest things and really one of the most exciting at that intersection of GIS and BIM. It's essentially blurring the line between where sort of BIM stopped and GIS started into these singular applications that are very rich maps and apps full of BIM information that the entire set of stakeholders for a construction project benefit from.
I've been, when that announcement between Autodesk and Esri was announced, I think last year?
Oh, no. This was 5 years ago now.
5 years ago, okay.
Yeah.
So when that was...
We lost 3 years of our life.
Yeah.
Right?
That's true. So, but when that partnership was announced, I was actually very impressed and pleased to see that announced, as you said, to not be competitors, but to be partners.
Yeah.
And that's that's the way the construction industry should really go, is to form partnerships.
Certainly.
And to see the evolution of what's been created and to what your team is now, what the Esri and the Autodesk teams have now produced is absolutely incredible. If we were to address the BIM managers and BIM detailers of the world, what would be some practical use cases in that intersection and in that section, and what kind of training would you point them to?
Yeah, I would say that if you are a BIM manager, a CAD manager, a BIM user, or a CAD user, certainly using the Autodesk products, you need to get your hands on the connectors that Autodesk has built for free that run in those hero brands, Civil 3D, InfraWorks, BIM 360, Revit also has capabilities for bringing in maps as an underlay, so that when you're working on your infrastructure project, when you're working on a building, it's geo-referenced, and all that context of the site, the demographics, the population densities, where your competitive stores and environments might be that you need to consider, your environmental data, getting that data into the design environment, I think just opens the doors to better designing, more insights, what-if scenarios being explored much more easily. So I certainly think that's just the lowest hanging fruit. You're already using the Autodesk suite of tools for designing and engineering. Get those add-ins, and by being an Esri customer, then you can bring in maps that you yourself or others have created. And then I'd say it's also adding to your toolbox ArcGIS Pro, which is our premier product. A desktop solution with lots of extensions, either to cloud functionality or many, many layers of data, so that you can either bring your CAD and BIM into that map environment or simply understand your context using a new application that should be pretty familiar to anyone who's gotten their head around CAD and BIM functionality.
So cool. And I imagine there's demos and training material online?
Yeah. We've got, we're a company of over 5,000 employees, partners around the globe, 3,000, maybe 4,000 partners right now, distributors around the globe as well. Virtually every country in the world has got an Esri office, either directly or through a distributorship. And we're putting on webinars, we're recording them, we're putting together training materials. We have our own press organization within the company that literally produces still print books. We just did a MOOC, massive online
campaign?
No, a MOOC is an educational thing.
Oh, is it really? I don't know.
Yeah, we're 15,000, I think, people signed up for a multi-week training course to see how to bring together GIS and BIM.
Yeah.
So we're very actively getting the word out that this is easy to do with the right tools, and the value it adds to an AEC professional's kit of parts and ability to deliver rich information is something they shouldn't be passing up on.
Yeah, and so where would be the best resource for individuals to go to learn more?
Yeah, I would probably point people to esri.com/AEC.
Okay,
so
perfect.
That's the AEC area on Esri's website. That's where we highlight case studies, individual companies, individual users who are doing great things. We talk about some of our capabilities in the architecture, engineering, construction, environmental management spaces. And from there, through our website, you'll find tons of training content, partners to connect with. That would probably be the best place to point people if there was just one place to go to.
Very cool. Switching gears to GeoWeek. So again, we're here in Denver, Colorado at GeoWeek 2023. You have a presentation tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm doing a presentation with the WGIC, working with Barbara Bryan, who's the executive leader of that. Sharing my insights on GIS and the built world. So that's just one small presentation. I think Esri must have had 7 or 8 presentations total, including Jack Dangermond just did the keynote and kind of shared some of his visions, which is always an eye-opener. And then here at the show, we are showing for the first time publicly a new solution called ArcGIS Reality, which is a suite of functionalities with really the flagship in that being an acquisition we made a few years ago from a company called N-Frames, a product called Sure that creates meshes from point clouds, LiDAR, photogrammetry, various imagery stitched together to very high resolution, high quality enormous scale meshes, whether it's an individual building and campus and a few blocks that you might need at super high quality, to literally an entire country scale. That is just the way GIS works. We don't really worry too much about large scale. GIS just supports that so well. And now with ArcGIS Reality, the ability to take imagery information and use it just as another layer of rich data that you can combine with BIM. You can combine with this demographics or transportation information or weather patterns. That's an exciting thing that's happening today. We're getting a really good response to that new offering.
Yeah, I'm very excited about that tool. I see some great potential with it. And I got to meet Conrad yesterday as part of our panel.
Yeah, Conrad from over in Stuttgart working on the product is a brilliant, from the original developers of the technology, and a great spokesperson for it as well.
Yeah, I really feel like your team is very fortunate to have such a strong base and be building towards such a strong vision. What are some key takeaways from Jack's keynote?
Wow, Jack's keynote. I mean, he's always very inspirational. And leaves you thinking about how what you're doing could potentially do more than just help the next building get built or the next highway get built. Something that after listening to him speak, and I get the opportunity to do that a number of times, being an employee, is that what Esri's doing with our software certainly helps the next bridge get engineered and designed and helps a campus expand, but we're really making an impact in the world, and that makes it easier to get up out of bed and go to work every day knowing that the software that you work on and the projects that you talk about really help society. And there's an altruistic element to that which makes you feel good working for a company like Esri.
Yeah, I'm very excited about what you guys are doing, and congratulations on all of your recent success.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark.
My pleasure, Mark.
Thank you. Hello and welcome to Future Construct. I'm Mark Oden, the CEO of BIM Designs Inc. We're here at Geo Week in 2023, Denver, Colorado. I'm here with Colin Romberger at Skydio. He's a solutions engineer. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thanks for making the time to join us today.
Absolutely, yeah, pleasure.
I'd love to hear about you, Colin, and a little bit about your background and from beginning to Skydio.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Well, I guess we'll start off and say that Skydio is an American drone manufacturer. So my background is heavy in aviation and unmanned aviation. I got started back in high school flying airplanes, taking flight lessons and things. Fell in love with everything that had to do with flight when I got into college. Actually started jumping out of airplanes too, and did that in college, and then for about 4 years afterwards professionally. I was an instructor for about 8 years or so total. Shortly after that's actually when I found drones. As a kid, I had played around with RC airplanes and things like that, but it was always just for fun and try not to crash them basically, which was almost impossible. But anyway, I started seeing these videos and things on YouTube about people that were building these quadcopters and seeing them for sale in different places, it seemed like they'd come a really long way in something that was flying, an RC flying object that was not that easy to crash and actually was able to do some use for folks. So around that time was when the FAA first started coming out with rules for using drones for commercial purposes, and they had what they called a Section 333 exemption, that you could only utilize and fly the drones if you were already a pilot of manned aircraft. And luckily I had finished my private pilot certificate, so I petitioned the FAA. I got an early Section 333 exemption and started a small company in Pennsylvania where we did a variety of different things, but we primarily focused on real estate, marketing type aerial photographs and videos, and also construction project management. So mainly just status checks, flying the sites periodically, once a week, once every couple weeks. A lot of times the project leads on those, the different construction firms that were responsible, they were located in another state, so they had subcontractors that were there doing the work, and there was a big problem with subcontractors saying one thing to their the folks they were reporting to, when when actually the work was on a completely different track. So my clients really liked the fact that we could fly and we could give them a live update of what was actually happening and where the status of everything was. And that's actually where I got introduced to mapping and modeling with drones. Started to learn about photogrammetry, and anyway, the whole process kind of snowballed from there. I ended up taking a job as chief pilot and lead SUAS consultant with a company in Pennsylvania called Dart Drones that did consultations and trained individuals on how to use drones for commercial purposes, and also worked with companies to help them establish their drone programs in those very early days, right around when the Part 107 rules kind of came out and took over from Section 333. So I did that for about 5 years. Loved working with folks that were trying to actually bring drones into the field and make them valuable for a variety of different use cases. Worked with federal customers, state and local governments, a variety of different enterprise customers in the utility space, construction space, you name it. Really, we were helping them out and really trying to drive that future vision of what drones could turn into. And after I'd been there for about 5 years, I came across Skydio, and they had been around. That we got our start at Skydio back in 2014 officially as a company, but didn't really start producing a whole lot of aircraft for consumer purchase and then for business purchase until around 2018 or so. But anyway, I jumped at the opportunity to come on board because Skydio offered a really unique value proposition in that they were a software company that developed really cutting-edge autonomous software, and they put that on drones. And so it took the typical drones that everyone was used to that, for lack of a better word, were kind of dumb in the sense that, if we talked about autonomy and mapping and things like that, it's really just a matter of, going from one GPS point to the other. But, there's really no awareness of what's happening around the drone. There's no AI going on to, basically be able to recognize things of interest and direct the aircraft to certain areas. And we kind of changed the whole paradigm with that, and we moved away from GPS as what guided us in the way that we conduct our autonomous flight, and we developed a really impressive suite of autonomous vision-based software to be able to unlock a lot of doors and be able to unlock a lot of use cases where GPS flight just really wasn't possible, whether it was indoors or in highly energized environments where there might be a lot of interference, different things related to that. So I jumped at the opportunity to join Skydio, came on as a solutions engineer back in 2020, and about a year ago moved into the role of solutions engineering manager, focusing primarily with our state, local, and education customers. So all of our state and local government entities, law enforcement, colleges, universities, DOTs, and also our utility customers, so in the energy space as well.
Well, thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
The career path is amazing, and I have a personal affinity towards the fact that you have pilot's license,
Yeah.
and you fly both manned and unmanned aircraft. That's a really amazing accomplishment, and I think that's incredible.
Great, thanks.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about Skydio, what they've accomplished lately,
Yeah.
And at scale, how large they are, and maybe we can dive also into some of the products and solutions that are recent.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've grown very, very fast over the last 2 years since I've joined the company. When I came on board, we were still less than 150 employees total. Today, we're just approaching 600. In fact, we may have passed 600 at this point. It's definitely been a very strong growth curve. As far as really what we've continued to do and where our vision has continued to lie, it's been in trying to unlock that future state where drones are not just a aircraft where you have one person on the ground with a controller and a drone flying around above your head in a 1-to-1 ratio, but we really believe that the future is more of an autonomous ecosystem where drones exist and cooperate with other types of autonomous systems and vehicles, whether that's ground-based vehicles, water-based vehicles, just automated systems at facilities, et cetera. And we can utilize the intelligence in the autonomy to be able to really do things that today people would look at and say, we're still decades away from being able to make that a reality. So some of our current focuses are around using the computer vision that we've developed and the AI neural nets that we've integrated into our system to make the job of capturing data for mapping purposes and for more aligned, I would say, with digital twin creations, that much more effective and that much easier. One of the big challenges when we do structural modeling today, if we look at the historical practices, is that those GPS-based workflows don't really take into account all the complex facets that exist when we look at different types of structures. For example, if we look at, let's say, we'll take the utility space again, since we do a lot in the utility space. If you're trying to create a digital twin of a electrical substation, it's a nightmare. You've got all kinds of very thin structures, different different elevations where those structures are. You have components that have overhangs and need to be viewed with kind of an upward looking angle to be able to capture them. And so if you're focused on traditional 2D type mapping or even just GPS based mapping, you're really flying at fixed altitudes a lot of times and with fixed camera angles, and you're just hoping that you're getting enough blanket coverage to produce some type of representation, but you're really not getting all the nitty-gritty details that you need to. So we've created a product called 3D Scan, which has been very well received by the customers that we're working with today, and really just the industries as a whole across a variety of different verticals. And what that does is it allows the user to identify an area, a three-dimensional volume that they're interested in capturing, and then we send the drone in, and from that point on, the pilot doesn't have to do anything. The drone will actually use its own visual autonomy and its own intelligence to explore that scene, fly around it, and learn about all the facets, all the nooks and crannies on its own. It then builds a mesh model, an edge model right there on the platform, and then uses that to guide the actual photo capture process. So the user can still say, hey, I want to make sure my photos are overlapped by 80% or 60% or whatever they might need, and they can also say, and I want to make sure that I've got a resolution, a pixel value of anything from about 0.5 millimeter, up to multiple centimeters, and then they hit one button, the drone goes back in, and it takes all those images with the camera moving dynamically to track all those different facets, overhangs, etc. So at the end, they're left with a data set that they can then plug into their photogrammetry software or whatever other software that they're using as far as a data deliverable, and have all the information that they need to get that perfect end result.
Thank you for sharing that. So it really sounds like Skydio is trying to make a one-stop shop for...
Yeah, absolutely. That we still recognize that when we look at a true end-to-end solution, it's not just about capturing the data, but we also then have to be able to process the data and create a deliverable. And so we've worked with a lot of really great partners in that back-end space to be able to provide those deliverables. And we utilize a lot of different APIs to be able to pass the data from our side over to them. So the customer's experience is very seamless. They can get that true end-to-end pipeline that they're looking for, and we're thankful that we can work with partners to make that a reality.
Fantastic. So as we transition to Geo Week, you have a presentation this week. Could you tell us a little bit about it and some takeaways?
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I'm excited about it. I'm actually moderating a panel tomorrow where we're going to be discussing UAV and UAS sensors and workflows for mapping and modeling based applications within the geospatial environment. So we've got a lot of great folks on that panel, and they're going to have exciting things to share, both from the standpoint of hardware and developing, companies that are developing these sensors, and the next generation of LiDAR and visual imaging, thermal imaging, etc., as well as that back end when we come to the data processing side and looking at those end-to-end workflows and where we are today to open up more doors for the industry.
Very cool. I'm excited about the panel.
Yeah.
So we're about halfway through Geo Week now. What are some major takeaways for you?
Well, so far I've been really impressed with just the variety of exhibitors that are here, and the variety of industries that are being represented. I think this is my first time coming to Geo Week, and when I first was asked to moderate a panel, I was a little bit surprised because I had never been here before. I guess I'd had some good referrals from other folks that had them reach out to me and see if I was available, which very humbled by, and that's great. As far as what I've seen so far, it's amazing. We do have a booth that's here for Skydio as well, and some of my colleagues are running that right now. And from what they've told me, it's been a fantastic experience. A lot of really great, valuable leads that we've gotten, a lot of great conversations that we've had, and hopefully a lot of business that we can do going forward.
I hope so too.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for making the time, Colin. I really
Absolutely.
appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.